Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we show you how to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and it's another edition of the Ninth Age, Battle Report number 4. In this battle report, it is I, Commander CheapSkate, with my Legion of the Hellmouth, which is my Ogre Khan's army, versus Fresh Prince Bel-Air of House Laynell, the Highborn Elves. This is a 2,000 point battle, so let's see what happens when a huge army of fatty backs takes on a bunch of I don't know, uppy elves. Let's see what happens. It's a good one. It's a pretty brutal one for fighting against high elves. But anyways, enough of that. Let's move on to the army lists. Alright, so this is my Legion of the Hellmouth. This is my Ogre Khan's army. It's a 2,000 point army, and it's a little bit different from the last time from my previous battle report. I made some adjustments to it. So let's go and talk about the list in its totality. First of all, we have Taijin Khan the Hellfist. He is the right hand of change. He is a Ogre Khan, Great Khan actually, with a Hellfist big name, Marks of Change, Yeti Fur, Blind Eye of Nyagi, I believe how you pronounce that, and the Aurochs Charm. So basically, I switch to some of his magical items to make sure that his unit doesn't get targeted with magical attacks. Next, we have Papa Rottenjaw, who is a Great Khan Shaman with a Rotten Jaw big name, Mark of Pestilence, level 4 upgrade, Iron Fist, and he's the Path of Pestilence. And the reason why I went with this one is because it's kind of got a nice balance of buffs as well as offensive spells, which I think would be kind of nice for this army as well. Next, we have Korgul Khan, the Spine Splitter. He is a Ogre Khan with a Mark of Wrath, Battle Standard Bearer upgrade, Iron Fist, as well as the Skull of Quinget. And then finally, we have another hero, which is her name is the Huntress. She is a Shaman with the Mark of Lust, Iron Fist, Path of Lust, as well as a level 2 upgrade as well. And so that way I could have hexes for that unit because I think the Mark of Lust has some pretty good hexes on that one. Alright, so with that, moving on to the core. Our first core choice is the Blight Kings. It is 5 tribes with full command, Iron Fist, Heavy Armor, and the Marks of Pestilence. Next, we have the Nightkin, which are 5 tribesmen with full command, Iron Fist, Heavy Armor, Marks of Lust, and the Banner of Speed. And then finally, we have the Wrathmongers, which are 6 bruisers with full command and the Mark of Wrath. So basically, my Ogre Khan as well as my Great Khan will go into the Wrathmongers. The Huntress goes with the Nightkin, and then we have the Banner of Speed to kind of be my flanking unit. And then, of course, we have the Blight Kings, where my Great Shaman goes, basically just another fighting unit. Next, we have our special choice. Our special choice are 4 bombardiers called the Emulators. They are Marks of Change. I love those guys. Those guys, shoot everything out of hell with those massive hand cannons there, which is kind of cool. And for my last choice, of course, from our rare choice, we have the Anvil of Hell, which is a Thunder Cannon with a Mark of Change. And that pretty much rounds up my army for this one. Alright, so up next is my opponent's army. This is Fresh Prince Bel-Air's House Laynell, the Silvery Host of Calidor. It is a Highborn Elves army. So let's talk about his Lord and Hero choices first of all. First of all, he has Lord Tywin Laynell. He's a High Elf Prince with a shield, Elven Steel with Barding, the Prince of Rima upgrade. He has Ogre Sword or Armor of Destiny, as well as a Dragonfire gem. So basically, he's just like your typical kitted out combat lord for High Elves. After that, we have Archmage Tytos Laynell. He's an Archmage with the Asvad Scholar, I believe how it's pronounced, upgrade with level 4. He's got Gleaming Robes, Cloak of Stars, as well as the Path of White Magic. And that's kind of annoying because basically you can't hurt that guy in close combat unless you use magical attacks. After him, we have Tanis Laynell. He is a commander who's got the Fleet Officer upgrade as well as an Ambusher upgrade. He is also equipped with the Dragon Forge armor, halberd, longbow. He's a Battle Standard Bearer, and he carries the Rending Banner. So looks like my opponent's got some ambushers in this army. For his core choices, he has House Laynell Guards, which are 9 Highborn Lancers with full command and the War Banner of Rima. After that, we have the Griffin Guard, which is 23 Sea Guards with full command, and those guys have the Ambushers upgrade. So yeah, ambushing high elves. So, I mean, who would have thought that such a thing could exist, right? All right, after that, for a special choice, we have the Everwardens, which are 23 Flame Wardens with full command, as well as the Banner of Becalming. And those guys are like the old Phoenix Guard guys, so those guys are pretty deadly. And then rounding out his army for his rare choice, he has the Reigns of Calidor, which are 3 Sea Guard Reapers. And that will be my opponent's army for this one.
Assemble the army!
Alright, so here's deployment with our armies assembled. We're fighting on a 4x6 table. As you can see there, basically, the battlefield's kind of cut into a quarter there with that river basically taking up the left-hand side of the board there. As you can see there, I have my entire army deployed, as well as my opponent has most of his army deployed, minus his ambushers. Basically, I'm going to be going first this turn because I decided to deploy my entire army all at once, so that way I can secure that first turn roll. So let's go break down the individual deployment areas. Alright, so this is deployment for my left flank. I put it along the length of the river there. As you can see there, I got the Anvil of Hell, which is my Thunder Cannon with my 4 Emulators right next to them, or my 4 Bombardiers, and then right after them, with that kind of like white character there, that's my Blight Kings, which my Ogre Khan, or sorry, not my Ogre Khan, my Great Shaman is located at there. So that's what the Mark of Pestilence goes. So that's deployment on this side. And here's my right hand flank for my lines. You can see right there in the middle, I have my Wrathmongers, which are my bruisers. Inside there's my Great Khan as well as my Khan BSB guy right there. And on the far right hand side there, I got my Nightkin with my Huntress, who is my level 2 Shaman with the Mark of Lust and equipped with the speed of Banner of Space. That way they're kind of like my flank unit that kind of runs up and just takes on everything that goes their way. So yeah, that makes up the plan for my army. Alright, so this is the left flank deployment for Fresh Prince Bel-Air's army. As you can see there, that tower located there, he basically put all three of his bolt throwers located in that area as well, which is going to be kind of rough for me because there's basically a river between me and those bolt throwers, and I really didn't have anything to kind of deal with that. So my goal is just to basically bypass him as quickly as possible, get it closed in with his ranks, that way he can't fire my troops because they're going to be bogged down in close combat because I have no real solution to attacking those guys that's so far away. I don't have anything that scouts or anything has ambushers rules in my army, and that might be something I might need to look at later. But for now, that's all I got right now. So that's the deployment on the left-hand side. And here's Fresh Prince Bel-Air's center. As you can see there, next kind of catty-cornered to that river and to the back of the table. Starting on the left, he has his Everwardens located inside that. Everwardens with his Flame Warden troops is his level 4 Archmage, which is the guy in the blue robes there, kind of holding out in the center there. And that unit also has the Banner of Becalming, I think is what it's called. So basically, they have 2 dispel attempts, and they can also do 2 channels in this army too, which is kind of a beast, especially since they get a +1 to channel, +1 to casting or dispelling with that banner for the wizard, which is kind of cool as well. And on the right hand side there, you can see there we have House of Nelgar, which is the 9 Highborn Lancers, with his general located in that one right next to the right of them. So that is the plan for the center. And chilling off to the side right now is the rest of his army, which is basically his ambushers. So he has his Fleet Officer Commander, which is his BSB, with the Banner of Rending, and his 23 Sea Guard, which are kind of deadly in this one because these guys are ambushing. And they have bows as well as spears, so kudos to my opponent. So yeah, that is the plan for my enemy's army, and we go off to turn number 1. Alright, so here's a picture of top of turn 1 after movement. This is for Ogre Khan's got turn number 1. The reason why is because I've deployed my entire army first. As you can see in this picture, I just basically marched everything I could as quickly as possible to close ranks. I have nothing really, like I said before, to deal with those bolt throwers that are there on my left flank, except to maybe use my cannon to take out one, or maybe use my immolators to take him out in longer range shots. But for right now, basically, I try to close the distance. That way, my troops will get fixed in with his, and he won't be able to shoot down my guys. So you can see that the very far right-hand flank, I basically set up the Huntress with the Nightkin. I've set them as quickly as possible, get them set up for like a flank charge in case my opponent decides to charge any of my core units. Right then in the center, of course, I have my Great Khan and Banner out of BSB with my Wrathmongers, and then occupying the top of that ruins is my Great Khan, my Great Shaman with the Blight Kings, which are basically his Plague Ogres. I then marched those guys up as far as I could using their maximum movement less they could possibly do that. Right behind them, you got the Immolators kind of taking position behind that fence to open up with their hand cannons on whatever units I can. And then, of course, I have my Anvil, the Hell, basically lined up ready to shoot stuff. So that is moved for this turn, and with that, we go on to the Magic phase. Magic phase was less than stellar, especially since my opponent gets +1 to channels, and he also gets like the really high magic rolls because our elves, and that's what they do. He gets the +1 for dispelling because of that Banner of Becalming. So because of that, most of my spells were really locked down by the high elves. So the only spell I managed to get off was the Fly Up Regen spell that you can put on anything. So I decided to put on my Thunder Cannon since I figured that was probably the one thing that my opponent was going to try to shoot at with his bolt throwers. So that makes up Magic phase for this turn. In the shooting phase, Justice is mine when I opened up with my Thunder Cannon, the Anvil of Hell, and took out one of his bolt throwers. That was pretty awesome. The only thing I regretted was that his bolt throwers weren't in a straight line for me to bounce into the other ones like I did in my opponent's Doom Divers. That would have been cool, but unfortunately they're not. They're kind of spread out. So, but you know what? One less bolt thrower to worry about is always a good thing. So kudos to that part. And in this picture, my Hellblasters, my Immolators, my Bombardiers opened up on the House of Nelgar, with the Highborn Elves, the Highborn Lancers. I basically opened up with that unit as well. I only managed to kill one of those guys with the shots because they're such long range. I get -1 to hit, so I'm rolling at 4+ if I'm not within long range. So I have to roll 5 up. So a lot of my shots didn't get through, a lot of them didn't hit, but one managed to kill off one of those guys. And with the Hellfire special rule, I get 1d3 worth of Strength 3 D3 flaming attack hits, and that was the one that took out one of the other guys as well. And I got to roll 2 wounds, basically only wounded, 1 wound got through, and managed to kill that guy as well. And as I said before, some of my other battle reports, we kind of did the Hellfire special rule kind of wrong in the previous reports. We've been seeing some comments on this one, and we have since corrected that one. So it's only 1d3 Hellfire attack, no matter how many guys have it. So that's what happened on this part. And since there's no hand-to-hand combat, we go on to bottom of turn number 1 for the High Elves, and this is that picture after movement. As you see that, my opponent basically did very little movement, if any at all. Basically keeps his House Laid Out Guards, which is his Silver Helms, his Highborn Lancers, with his generally keeps them back in reserve. Basically moves up his Flame Wardens as well as Archmage. He just moves up 5 inches. He doesn't march or anything. Basically, I think what he was doing is trying to set up his guys in case they're a charge. I can understand why he didn't charge into my guys. If he sent his Flame Wardens in, I would have flanked him with my Bruisers, and if he sent his Lancers into my Bruisers, I could have charged in his flanks with my Tribesmen. Also, in the bottom of the fence there, I also got my Emulators as well as my Hail Cannon. So, my Hail Cannon, the Anvil of Hell. So, if he did charge with those Flame Wardens, I would have flanked him too. So, basically, I think what he's doing is he's just buying time for his ambushers to arrive. So, that's the picture for movement on this one. And this is also pretty much the picture for his entire turn as well. Basically, when it came to magic phase, he rolled really low for magic. He only got 3 dice, and I managed to channel additional Dispel dice. So he tried to cast the big Soul Quench spell, basically like Luminous Bolt spell, I think is what it's called. And it's kind of like the old magic missile that he used to have for one of their basic spells, and I managed to dispel that, so there was nothing there. Shooting for him went really bad. He tried to do 2 big bolts onto my Hail Cannon, and he missed one of his shots, and the other one didn't manage to wound it all. So because of that, his shooting was basically negligible. And since there's no hand-to-hand combat whatsoever, turn goes to me. So very uneventful turn for the High Elves. I'm sorry, Highborn Elves. Man, these names in 9th edition are killing me. But anyways, moving on to turn number 2. Alright, so this is the top of turn 2 after move for the Ogre cons. You can see there not much movement that happened on my end either. I attempted to charge all 3 of my big close combat Ogre units. I tried to charge with both units of Tribesmen as well as my unit of Bruisers as well. Unfortunately for me, however, I rolled piss poor on those charges. I rolled like 3s, 2s, and a 4, I think is what I rolled for my units, and they were nowhere near getting that. So basically, they just kind of moved up an inch or 2 for my units. That was kind of depressing. I was kind of hoping to close a gap and basically start killing High Elves, the Highborn Elves, which is what my guys are going to do the best. So unfortunately for them, they didn't make it. For the rest of my units, for my Emulators as well as my Hail Cannons, moved up their maximum movement allowance, not marching them, so that way I can shoot through the next turn. So with movement out of the way, with me failing that epically, we go on to the magic phase. Alright, so when it comes to the magic phase, it was pretty neat. Basically got that spell off, what's called Mind Reaping. That's when they take a d6 strength 4 hits with armor piercing. Unfortunately, I didn't roll very well for the number of hits that I gave, so basically I only managed to kill one of those Highborn Lancers I put on that General's unit. And basically, since the High Elves have such a high leadership score, they basically stopped the attacks on that part. But I managed to kill one of those High Elves in the process. And also made him basically have to take a leadership test as well for panicking, because I put one more guy out of that unit. Unfortunately, because High Elves have high leadership, they didn't go fleeing either. So that part was kind of cool. Unfortunately, in order to get Mind Reaping off, it went off with overwhelming power.
Klaatu! Miranda!
So I rolled in the miscast. I basically rolled a 5. That's where you get like a small little detonation with the small template. I managed to put 1 wound on the Huntress, and I managed to kill off one of my Tribesmen in the process of doing so. I had to also take a leadership test because of that, but they passed because I got the BSB as well as a general nearby. So not the greatest. I only managed to kill 1 High Elf, and I lost an Ogre out of it. So Magic Phase is not doing so well for me on this part. But, it is what it is. Well, with Magic Phase over, we go directly next on to the Shooting Phase. And it was pretty freaking epic when it came to the shooting phase. When I went to go fire my Thunder Cannon, which is the Anvil of Hell, unfortunately he missed his shot, so I wasn't able to take out one of those bolt throwers. But my Emulators, oh my god, my Emulators stepped it up when they opened fire on that entire unit of Highborn Lancers. I rolled my 46. I got something like 16 or 17 shots off of those guys, which was pretty awesome as well. And since I was kind of in closer range, I didn't have to worry about so much with the penalties with the long range shooting. But I killed like almost every single one of those Highborn Lancers. I think I killed, 7 of those guys. So yeah, I managed to massacre 7 of them. However, when it came to the Hellfire rule, unfortunately for me, my opponent's general has that Dragon Flame gem. That's the one that basically gives him a plus up, his Fireborn special rule. So that way he got a +2 ward save against flaming attacks. So that basically did nothing for him. But that was kind of neat. So that general's all by himself now, and that's one less unit of Highborn Elves to worry about. So yeah, kudos to me. And since there's nobody in combat right now, that ends my turn number 2. So with that, we go on to the High Elves. God, I mean, Highborn Elves. Highborn Elves. Oh my god, these 9th edition, 9th age names are going to kill me because I'm such a used to playing Warhammer rules. But anyways, so now we're on turn 2 for Highborn Elves, not High Elves, Highborn Elves. And basically this is a picture after movement, so you can see there, there has been some movement going on in this battle. As you can see there in the center, basically the Flame Wardens charge into my Immolators, which are my Bombardiers, so they just kind of go for broke for those guys. The General, in a real ballsy move, just charged into my Blight Kings, where my Great Shaman is located at, so he basically made that as well. And you can see there on the far right-hand flank, there on the far right-hand side of the board, basically my opponent's Seaguard with their Ambusher special rule roll right in. And so they're ready to sit up to do some shooting as well as some charging. So yeah, that's movement for my opponent's turn. The magic phase is less than spectacular for my opponent. He rolled kind of low from the magic on that part. So because of that, he didn't really get much of any of his spells off at all. So because of that, that didn't work out too well for him. However, in the shooting phase, however, his entire Seaguard unit opens up onto the Huntress, as well as my Nightkin. They managed to plink off another one of my Triswims. So because of that, so I had to take a leadership test again because they basically took more than quarter casualties. Luckily for me, however, the Marks of Lust allows you to that's not Marks of Lust. I'm thinking of the wrong thing. Luckily for me, I was in the Battle Standard Bearer as well as the General's rank, so I managed to pass my leadership test on that one. I failed the first time, but because the BSB was there, I was able to re-roll for that one as well. So that pretty much makes up my opponent's shooting phase. His Bolt Throwers try to shoot at my Great Cannon, my Thunder Cannon, but they also miss as well. So High Elf Bolt Throwers aren't doing so well either. So with shooting down, we move on directly to the combat phase. So, starting with the close combat phase, as you can see in the center picture there, General Tywin Lanell issues a challenge to my Great Shaman. My Great Shaman refuses the challenge because I'm afraid that's, going to end badly for him. So basically, I step up with my champion. Because, for Ogres, champions are actually kind of good because they got multiple wounds, they got, a +1 ballistic skill, +1 attack, +1 weapon skill. So if you think about it, Ogre Cons are kind of like miniature heroes, if you think about it, when it comes to your champions. So I basically stuck with my guys, like, Blight Kings, he's got the +1 initiative because of his Iron Fist, he's got the heavy armor, he's got the Mark of Pestilence, it should be going great. Unfortunately for me, though, it did not go so great. Lord Tywin Lanell just basically sliced my guy in half with that Ogre Blade of his, with his lightning reflexes and all that jazz. So because of that, he didn't survive at all, so he got destroyed. And unfortunately for me, because he killed me with overkill, any wounds that spill over past that basically gets used for the combat resolution. And so I had to take a combat test. Needless to say, my unit fled. They failed their panic test, of course, because of the overspill for the break test, because of the overspill from the overkill bonus. And basically, my guys run. Of course, Tywin Lanell pursues. He overruns them and destroys them. And so my entire unit of freaking Blight Kings, 5 ogres with my Grey Shaman gets killed by 1 general on horseback. Oh my god, I could not believe that. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? But it was ridiculous. He destroyed my entire regiment with that. And then, of course, he combat reforms and he faces my units of bruisers. And I'm like, oh my god, that went bad. And then after that, he goes on with his Flame Wardens against my Bombardiers, and they go first because they got higher initiative. And he completely destroys that unit as well. And then when he does his combat reform in order to face my bruisers, he moves his unit in such a way that I basically are outside of the flank charging of my my Thunder Cannon, and I can't charge in the rear either because he's not within my 90-degree viewing arc. So because of that, I can't flank him or hit him in the rear either with my Thunder Cannon. So I was like, oh my god, it was so bad. I was like, oh my god. Now I have to worry about a pincer attack now. Now I have the general, that big, huge block of Flame Wardens, and now I also got that huge line of Seaguard on my right-hand side. And so with this battle started looking at so well for me, the tables have now quickly turned, and I can't believe how quickly those turned too. So yeah, that pretty much makes up the combat phase, my opponent. And with that, we move on to turn number 3. Alright, so this is the top of turn 3 after moving for the Ogre Cons. As you can see there, basically all I could do is just combat reform is all I could possibly do. Since my Thunder Cannon was out of the arc of to charge that unit of Phoenix Guard. Basically, I just kind of pivot him such a way so that way he can start moving into that part and can basically get into their flank next turn. So I'm planning on shooting them with Scatter Shot up until that point. For my Bruisers as well as my Night Cannon, I basically did a combat reforms, passed my leadership test, and basically have them facing opposite ways. I got my Bruisers facing down the Wrath and the Flame Wardens as well as a general, and I got my Night Cannon facing down whatever is going to be coming my way with those Sea Guard guys. So that pretty much makes a move for my phase. Magic for me was an absolute joke for me because all I have my left is my level 2 caster and my opponent's level 4 caster just play Merry Hob with them. However, in the shooting phase, I managed to plink off 2 of those Flame Wardens with my Scatter Shot, Grape Shot volley gun from my Thunder Cannon, which is kind of cool. So, not kill as many Flame Wardens as I wanted to, but, I'll take what I get at this point because, Flame Wardens are legit and those guys just do not die. So with shooting out of the way, and since there's no combat, we move on to my opponent's turn. Alright, so this is the bottom of turn 3 for the High Elves after movement phase. As you can see there, my opponent basically just goes in for the kill. He charges in with his Flame Wardens as well as General to my Bruisers, and they basically make their charges and close the gap there. At the same time, he also charges with his Sea Guard into the front of the Night Kin as well. So now I'm stuck in a pincer attack, and basically my units are standing back to back and getting ready for war. So with movement over, we go directly on to the Magic phase. Magic phase is pretty much uneventful for my opponent as well because he rolled low for his dice. I managed to dispel most of his things, and plus, since he couldn't try to target my Bruisers with a magic spell, I used the Blind Eye of Miyagi once in order to stop that from happening, so I burnt that up in the process, so imagine it going in for my opponent. But for shooting phase, basically both his bolt throwers open up on my Thunder Cannon. Both of them hit this time, they both wound multiple times, and basically destroy my Thunder Cannon. So now my 2 units of Ogres are truly on their own. So with magic shooting out of the way, we go directly into the combat phase. And the combat phase is a bit of a grinding on this one. Basically, to first start off with this first photo, Tywin Lanell issues a challenge, and this time I answer the call with my general. Basically, my general steps up and faces Tywin Lanell down as well. They both manage to put a wound on each other, but that's about it. So basically, since it breaks out the draw and both guys are still alive, that challenge is basically still on the go. So that's the first part of this combat. Close combat between the Everwardens as well as my Bruisers actually went pretty well for me as well. They managed to kill one of my Bruisers and put a wound onto my other one, so basically caused 4 wounds. But luckily for me, however, I managed to kill 7 of those High Elf, Highborn little pricks. I basically killed off 7 of those Flame Wardens, which is really cool because, they got heavy armor as well as the 4 ward save. Basically, my heavy attacks with my great weapons basically went to the armor save. Received no armor saves, so the only thing they were relying upon was their ward saves. So I managed to kill 7 of those guys in the process of doing so. I won this combat, but because of high leadership, basically his unit basically sticks it out. And since they're also within range of his battle standard bearer, they're not going anywhere either. So combat between those 2 units is going to be a grind. It's pretty surprising how much of a grind this battle actually turned out to be. Alright, so combat over here on this side was actually pretty interesting. Basically, they managed to kill another one of my Night King and also managed to put 2 more wounds on another one as well. And we also managed to kill 6 of the Sea Guard at the same time as well. So the entire rank of those guys basically go away. My opponent basically won this combat, I think by 1 or 2, but because I have my Battle Center Bearer as well as my Great Khan nearby, my guys basically hold off when they're fleeing as well. So, like before, combat is basically just a grind between High Elves and Ogre Khans. I mean, who would have thought that Elves would last this long against Ogre Khans? So that was kind of neat. So with close combat done for my opponent, we go on to turn number 4. And since I have no movement, magic really, or shooting going on, we go straight to combat because magic basically was entirely uneventful for me. So once again, we go on to the continuing duel between Tywin Lanell as well as my general. Tywin Lanell, surprisingly, does not manage to inflict a single wound onto my Ogre Khan, my Great Khan, which is kind of cool. My guy basically put another wound onto Tywin Lanell. So 1 more wound and that dude is basically mine, which is kind of nice as well. So that's what happened in this picture with the turn between those 2. Close combat between the which is called the Everwardens, as well as my Bruisers, was also pretty intense as well. I managed to kill off 4 more of those Everwardens, and they managed to kill 2 of my Ogres at the same time. Basically, the Highborn Elves won this combat, but because of my BSB as well as my Great Khan, basically they kind of stuck it out. So like I said before, combat's still a grind on this one. So let's go on to the next part. And the absolute worst basically happens in the next round. My opponent's Sea Guard with their commander basically just eliminated my Nightkin as well as my, my Huntress. Basically with the amount of wounds those guys dished out, I wasn't able to save all of them, so basically that unit was destroyed, so that unit was gone. Because they did that, they decided to overrun my unit as well, but when they destroyed it, so because of that, they charged directly into my rear flank, so now my bruisers, my Great Khan, as well as my Khan, are now in a pincer attack between two units of High Elves with their generals, so things are not looking good for my army on this one. And so with my turnover, we go directly to the Highborn Elves' turn. But it really doesn't really get to happen in the close combat phase. I didn't really take a picture of that one. That's because basically almost all of my bruisers are almost dead. When it comes to this part, the only thing I have left is my battle standard bearer, my standard bearer for my bruisers, as well as my general, and that's basically what I call the end of the game. As you can see, I basically have almost nothing left. All I really got is just my, like I said, 3 ogres left, and I have all these high elves left. So instead of wasting our time with the additional turn, I basically said, you know what, I'm pretty much done. As you can see, my opponents did a very effective job of pretty much wiping me off the board. I mean, it's high elves, you know, so what else are you going to do about it? So, yep, that pretty much rounds it up. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the after-action report because this game is now over.
That's it, man. It's game over, man. It's game over.
I thought about staying. They offered me the chance to lead them, to teach them, to be king.
Uh-huh.
But my place is here, so I swallowed the juice, said the words, and here I am.
Did you say the words right this time?
Well, maybe I didn't say every single tiny little syllable, no, but basically I said them, yeah. Basically.
All right, this is time for the after-action report. This is the part of the battle report where we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we go against battles again. So this is the after-action report for 9th Age Battle Report number 4. It was I, Commander CheapSkate, of my Liege of the Hellmouth Ogre Khans versus French Prince Bel Air's House Lionel Highborn Elves. And it ended up being a defeat for yours truly. I was tabled. It was pretty bad on that one. So let's talk about one of the things that we learned and noticed about this battle in order to prepare for the next time. First of all, failed charges are the bane of my existence when it comes to this army. One of the main focuses and advantages this army has over the other ones is that you get your impacting hits from charges, and with me failing my charges like I did, wasn't all that great either. Plus, the fact I was also willing to kind of roll for all my stomp attacks too, which really didn't help as well. Speaking of low stats, let's talk about my weapon skill. Ogre Khans are great because they have a lot of strength, a lot of toughness, but their low weapon skill is what really bit me on this one. I basically need to find another way to balance that out somehow. Either I gotta, start using my hexes and my buffs in order to increase my weapon skill or to decrease my opponent's weapon skill or to make it better as well. Low initiative was also kind of brutal on this one because elves are wicked fast and ogres are not. So that's another thing I look out for too. Which was also contributed to another factor, which is low dice rolling for magic. That didn't help for me or my opponent either. We both rolled consistently low when it came to generating dice for our spells for whatever odd reason during this battle. I guess the magic gods were like, no magic for you basically, so it was kind of tough. So because I couldn't get off some of the buffs I wanted, so with the hexes I wanted, and at the same time, my opponent couldn't get those off either. So because of that, didn't work out too well. I did like having more units on the table, however, to balance things out. It felt kind of weird having a lot as many maneuverable units like I did in my previous battle reports. So getting rid of one Thunder Cannon in order to adjust that was kind of nice. I did like having 2 different casters to give me one for buffs and one for hexes, which is kind of cool. And I did like having multiple units to kind of deal with things. However, I think by spreading out my points over all the units that I did have, basically my units might be too small to deal with any large and rank and file units at all. So, for example, that unit of Flame Wardens as well as Sea Guard, I mean, those guys are pretty large units. I mean, they're about 24 men apiece. So because of that, my thinner 6-man units basically had problems dealing with those. So I'm thinking I might need to concentrate my points for the next battle report that I do and actually have less units but more ogres in each unit, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So because of that, I need to figure that out. I might have to take a look at that for my next battle report. Also, having the lack of chaff units and throwing units due to Hellfist are also kind of a hindrance as well. And most Ogre Khan armies, you could have guys like Scraplings and Saber-tooth Tigers and things like that to throw at your opponent to kind of delay things. And because I have the Hellfist big name, I'm not able to use those kind of units. So because of that, it is kind of bad. But at the flip side of that, though, I do like having the added bonuses of the marks, especially when it comes to Mark of Wrath and Mark of Pestilence. Those 2 marks kind of help balance the fact that my troops have low weapon skills, and so because of that, they can kind of like either impact my enemy negatively or give me bonuses to strike back. So I might have to rethink maybe the marks of my guys and try to adjust some things in order to make that happen, to make it work out as well as it did. But aside from that, though, still having fun with my army, still having fun with the Ninth Age. Once again, Fresh Prince Bel-Air is a great guy to play against. He's one of my best friends, so I love playing against his Highborn Elves when I get a chance, so that's also pretty awesome as well. So yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. Free to like, subscribe, comment, thumbs up, thumbs down my videos. All the feedback I get is great. In fact, one of my commenters also made some comments about my Hellfire rule and basically made us aware of something we didn't know about when it came to that rule and helped to make our games better because of that, made it a little bit more balanced. So I appreciate the comments when it came to that Hellfire rule on that one as well. So yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this one. Once again, feel free to like, subscribe, comment. I like the back and forth, I like the interactions. Just keep on rocking, you guys. So we'll see you guys on the next one.